Welcome to the third Bible study, where I will be talking about um, a person in the Bible, Joseph, son of Jacob, and um, he's one of my he's my favorite person in the Bible and person that when I get to heaven I'd like to meet and talk to, just to see, get like a personal account from him, because I believe we'll be able to do that when we get to heaven. Um, First, though, let's pray, and then I'll get started. Um, Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for all the blessings that you've given us. Thank you, Lord, for just allowing me to be able to do this with these people, my friends, and be able to um, give Bible studies and be able to learn about you and learn about people that you care about, Lord. Please, Lord, just bless my mouth. Let me not say anything that you'd have me not to say, Lord. And let me say the things that you want me to, Lord. And just allow us to be able to have a good day today, and bless us and let us be able to learn something, Lord. And just name it. Amen. Okay. So, the first um, point that I'd like to make is that um, Joseph had and dealt with many visions and dreams throughout his life. In Genesis chapter 37, we'll start with verse 2. If anyone is following along, they can. Uh, oh, yes, I can invite you to speak. That's what you're was wanting. Okay. Um, Chapter 37. Okay, let's move next quick. Let's see here. Verse 2 is where I'll start. This is where it's basically the beginning of Joseph's story. It's not the beginning, because the previous chapters it talks about, all of his brothers and how they came to be, and the different handmaids and his wives and stuff, having basically a baby war on how many babies could be produced. Um, and it's actually quite insane and funny at the same time. So if you want to go back and read that sometime, that's it's. But anyway, um, what verse 2 says is, these are the generations of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brethren, and the lad that was with the sons of Bilhah and with the sons of Zilpah, his father's wives, and Joseph brought unto his father their evil report. Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children, because he was the son of his old age, and he made him a coat of many colors. Now, back then we don't have colors. They didn't have colors like we see today. Like dyes and stuff were very rare, so this was a very expensive coat. Happened to gather all the different colors that had to have been in that coat were very precious and very rare and very hard to come by. And so that's why the coat colors is very um, uh, well, you see in verse 4. And when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his brethren, they hated him and could not speak peaceably unto him. It's basically the equivalent of, oh, we have these um, beater cars, and dad just bought Joseph this sports car, basically, to put it in modern terms, in a way. Um, Verse 5, and Joseph dreamed a dream, and he told it to his brethren, and they hated him yet the more. And he said unto them, Hear, I pray you, this dream which I have dreamed. For behold, we were binding sheaves in the field, and lo, my sheaf rose and stood aright. and behold, your sheaves stood round about and made obeisance to my sheep. So basically, their sheaves bowed down to Joseph's sheaves. And his brethren said unto him, Shalt thou indeed reign over us, or shalt thou indeed have dominion over us? And they hated him yet the more for his dreams and for his words. And he dreamed yet another dream, and told his brethren, and said, Behold, I have dreamed a dream more. And behold, the sun and the moon and the 11 stars made obeisance to me. And he told it to his father and to his brethren. And his father rebuked him, and said unto him, What is this dream that thou hast dreamed? Shall I and thy mother and thy brethren indeed come to bow down ourselves to thee, to the earth? And his brothers envied him, but his father observed the saying. So this is where God's will is revealed for Joseph's life at 17. And God let him have a small glimpse of the future so that he could have hope throughout his life, through all the stuff that Joseph goes through. And but it's not a complete picture. God doesn't show the journey here. He only shows what happens at the end. That's what gives Joseph hope throughout his life. And let's see here. So after this point, Joseph's brothers take off to feed their flocks in Shechem, and then they end up going over to Dothan. Joseph talks to someone who saw his brothers take off in that direction, and Joseph went after his brethren and found them in Dothan. Verse 17 there. Verse 18, and when they saw him afar off, even before he came near unto them, they conspired against him to slay him. They said one to another, Behold, this dreamer cometh. They're mocking him. And verse 20, Come not therefore, let us slay him and cast him in some pit, and we will say, Some evil beast hath devoured him, and we shall see what will become of his dreams. And Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands, and said, Let us not kill him. And Reuben said unto them, Shed no blood, but cast him into this pit that is in the wilderness, and lay no hand upon him, that he might rid him out of their hands, to deliver him to his father again. So Reuben was the only sibling that tried to save Joseph through this, which he was successful in sparing his life, but as we know, 23, it came to pass when Joseph came unto his brethren, they stripped Joseph out of his coat of many colors. They took him, cast him into a pit. There's no water in the pit. Basically, verse 25, and they sat down and eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes, and then they saw the Ishmaelites coming from Gilead, bearing spicery, balm, myrrh, going towards Egypt. They basically sell them off. I'm just gonna sum up here because I still have a lot more reading to do. They sell them for 20 pieces of silver in verse 28, and they took him. Those guys took him to Egypt. Reuben had returned to the pit, but Joseph wasn't there. Then they go and dip the coat of many colors into goat's blood, and they tear it up to make it look like he got eaten by a wild beast. And his father, they take it back to his father, and his father thinks Joseph had died. So this is the setup for Joseph's life to come. This wasn't part of what God had revealed, but it was still part of his will. And oftentimes God will show us the end of our journey, but the path towards that journey he keeps hidden. Otherwise we would say, oh, we have to do that to get to there. Oh no, no, thank you. I'm not going to do that. You know, some people would take the charge, but most people uh, probably wouldn't. So that's why God gives us the end destination, and not the journey, because the journey is something that we have to discover on our own. Well, on our own with God, just not with any knowledge. But our hope, um, just like Joseph's hope, was being able to have his dreams of the obeisance of the sheaves and the stars and the sun and moon. Our hope is heaven, and that's what gives us strength to be able to face our trials on this earth, is knowing that we have a place in heaven with God. So chapter 39 of Genesis, it says, and Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, an Egyptian, bought him of the hands of the Ishmaelites, which had brought him down to him. And the Lord was with Joseph, and he was a prosperous man, and he was in the house of his master the Egyptian. And his master saw the Lord was with him, and that the Lord made all that he did prosper in his hand. Joseph found grace in his sight and served him, and he served him, and he made him overseer of his house, and all that he had he put into his hand. And it came to pass the time, from the time that he had made him overseer in his house and over all that he had, the Lord blessed the Egyptian's house for Joseph's sake. And the blessing of the Lord was upon all that he had in the house and in the field. And he left all in Joseph's hand, and he knew not aught he had, so save the bread that he did eat. And Joseph was a goodly person and well favored. So he put so much trust into Joseph that Potiphar didn't even know what he had. He only knew that he had bread to eat. That's the part where, and he knew not aught he had. That's how much God allowed Joseph to be a blessing to Potiphar. He just gave it all to him. Let's see here, and this is where another one of the trials. Verse 7. It came to pass after these things that his master's wife cast her eyes upon Joseph, and she said, "Lie with me." But he refused, and said unto his master's wife, "Behold, my master wotteth not what is my master wotteth not what is with me in the house, and he committed all that he hath to my hand. There is none greater in this house than I, neither hath he kept back anything from me but thee, because thou art his wife. And how then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" And it came to pass, and she spoke to Joseph day by day, and he hearkened not unto her to lie with her. So many days went by where she just tempted him and tempted him and tempted him, and he did not fall for that temptation. She finally got to a point where she caught him by the garment, saying, "Lie with me," in verse 12. And he left his garment in his hand, fled and got him out. And it came to pass that when she saw that he had left the garment in her hand, fled forth, then she yells and calls the men of the house to come in, and then she lies about what happened. And let's see. It came to pass when the master heard, verse 19, it came to pass when the master heard the words of his wife, which she spake unto him, saying, "After this manner did thy servant to me," that his wrath was kindled. And Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound, and he was there in prison. But the Lord was with Joseph, and shewed him mercy, and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed to Joseph's hand all the prisoners that were in the prison, and whatsoever they did there, he was the doer of it. The keeper of the prison looked not to anything that was under his hand, because the Lord was with him, and that which he did, the Lord made it to prosper. So again, God's mercy was able to allow Joseph to basically have what he had in Potiphar's house. The keeper of the prison, committed everything to Joseph, and he was in charge of it in the prison there, because God was blessing him. So whenever we go through our trials, God will guide us and protect us and be able to be there for us. Let's see here. So my second point is, the trouble, the trouble going through his life. So I'll come back to the first point a little bit when we get to later. But so all of his troubles were out of his control. The pit, slavery, jail due to Potiphar's wife. Now this didn't seem like part of God's will. Just read my notes here for a second. Okay. So all of this didn't really seem like it was part of God's will, but regardless, he had the peace of God. In verse Philippians 4, 6, 7, and 9. Be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving. Oh, my mic's cutting out. Oh no! I had this happen last time. Let me see if I can mute and make it come back. Hello? Is it working now? Hello? Okay, hold on a second. Restart Discord. Had this issue last time. Let's go over here. Wait, why am I in the audience? I should not be in the audience. Hello. Over here. Speak on stage. Okay, there we go. Do I sound better? Okay. Yeah, just let me know if that happens again. Where did it cut out at? Or it shouldn't have been too long, right? Oh, for like 5 minutes. Oh, that's not good. Well, I do have it recorded. I don't know how long ago 5 minutes was for when I was speaking, but man, technology can be such a blessing, but also such a curse sometimes. Okay. Well, I'll review the second point. So all of his troubles were out of his control. Pit, slavery, in the jail due to Potiphar's wife. Joseph didn't have any control for that. And this didn't seem like this was part of God's will. But through it all, he had the peace of God. And I turned to Philippians 4, 6, and 7, and 9. It says, "Be careful for nothing, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known unto God. And the peace of God, which passeth all understanding, shall keep your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus." And then verse 8 is the whatsoever things true, honest, think on these things. And then verse 9 is whose things which ye have both learned and received and heard and seen in me do, and the peace of God shall be with you. So Joseph had the peace of God in his life, just like what those verses were saying. Through and also through all of this, there's nowhere where it says that Joseph had complained about anything that was happening in his life. Um, you know, like with Jonah, Jonah complained a lot through his endeavor, uh, before and after, just through that whole thing. But with Joseph, there's not one place where it says that he complained about anything. That was the strength of character that he had. So now we turn to chapter 40. Let's see here. So this, I'll just sum up this because it's pretty well known. So the butler and the baker offended Pharaoh and threw him in prison, and that's the same prison that Joseph was bound in. Captain of the guard charged Joseph with them, and then they continued in a season inward. They both had a dream. Let's see here. And they dreamed both of them, each man his dream one night, according to interpretation, the butler and the baker, which were bound in prison. Joseph found them. They were sad. Let's see. Where's the? Okay, here we go. So I'll read through the chief butler's dream. So, in my dream, behold, a vine was before me. In the vine were 3 branches. It budded. Her blossoms shot forth. The clusters thereof brought ripe grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand. I took the grapes and pressed them into Pharaoh's cup, and I gave the cup on Pharaoh's hand. And then Joseph said unto him, the interpretation is, the 3 branches of 3 days. Yet within 3 days Pharaoh shall lift up thine head and restore thee unto thy place. Thou shalt deliver Pharaoh's cup into his hand, and after the former manner which when thou was a butler. And then he asked him to, I pray thee unto me, make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. For he was stolen, and he is falsely accused. So he asked the chief butler to do that for him there. And then the baker's dream, he had 3 baskets on his head. Had the different types of bread in his baskets. The birds ate them out of the basket upon his head. And then Joseph interpreted as 3 baskets, 3 days. And he says, Pharaoh will lift up thy head from off thee, and shall hang thee on a tree, and the birds shall eat thy flesh from off thee. And then it came to pass on the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, and then he made a feast unto all his servants, and lifted up the head of the chief butler and the chief baker among his servants, and restored the chief butler to his butlership again, and gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand, but he hanged the chief butler, as Joseph had interpreted to them. And yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forget him. So, kind of circling around back to point 1 with, when it came to, the dreams and the visions and stuff, God was definitely more specific on giving Joseph the interpretation. He was able to have a greater understanding than his own dream when he was 17 for his life compared to the life of others, because obviously 3 days is a lot shorter time span than however long this played out for Joseph. I'd say he's probably maybe his 20s. I'm not very good at estimating time, but he's definitely probably mid to late 20s, at least at this point in time. But let's see here. in chapter 41. And it came to pass at the end of 2 full years. So 2 years later, after Joseph had asked the chief butler to talk to Pharaoh about him, Pharaoh dreamed a dream, and his dreams was about kine, and which is basically cattle. So the 7 cattle that are feeding in the meadow, and then there's the 7 other cattle that come out of the river, ill-favored and lean. They're skinny and stuff like that. And the ill-favor ate up the 7 well-favored kind, and that woke up Pharaoh. You can use your imagination seeing cows eat each other. And then he slept a second time, and this time it's about corn. And the stocks that came up were full and plentiful, 7 of them, and then 7 thin ears, just like withered and blasted with the east wind, sprung up after them. And the 7 ears were devoured by the 7 good ears were devoured by the 7 bad ears. And Joseph was remembered by the butler and was called to Pharaoh. And then Joseph interpreted the dream, saying that both of the dreams are one. 7 cow and 7 corn are representing 7 years, and then there's going to be 7 plentiful years, and then 7 years of famine. And he suggests that you find somebody who let me find the verse here. Okay, the verse. Oh, should have wrote this down. Okay, I think it's verse 35. And let the 34. So 41, chapter 41, verse 34. Let Pharaoh do this, and let him appoint officers over the land, and take up. Oh wait, no, 33. Sorry. Now therefore let Pharaoh look out a man discreet and wise, and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh do this. Let him appoint officers over land to take up the 5th part of the land of Egypt in the 7 plenteous years, and let him gather all the food of those good years to come, and to lay up corn under the hand of Pharaoh, and let them keep food in the cities. Sorry, my headset I was using died and distracted me. Should probably switch my volume in case I have a. Okie dokie. So basically, Joseph says he needs to find somebody wise to be able to take over and store up food in the good years in preparation for the famines in the 7 bad years. And Pharaoh appoints Joseph because of his testimonies with the mic's cutting off again. Okay. Let me reset Discord. Sorry, YouTube folks. Just give me a second. Okay, am I back? $36. Testing 1, 2, 3. Just type in chat. Okay, cool. I don't know why Discord has trouble with this, but okay, here we go. So, Pharaoh appoints Joseph because of his testimony with Potiphar and with the testimony of the chief butler. The obviously the butler was able to remember and tell Pharaoh, and I'm sure Potiphar definitely kept Pharaoh in the loop, because Potiphar being an officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard, he definitely would have told Pharaoh about Joseph during that time, because putting a slave in charge of your whole household, your household just gets blessed beyond anything that they could have done. Definitely would have reached the ears of Pharaoh. And throughout all this, God saw what Joseph would do ahead of time and use all of this for his will. This is kind of like my point 3. God's will is accomplished. Joseph ends up second in command over all Egypt. Verse 41 is when, and Pharaoh said unto Joseph, see, I have set thee over all the land of Egypt. And verse 40 says, thou shalt be over my house, according to thy word shall my people be ruled. Only in the throne will I be greater than thou. And he sets him over all Egypt. He even takes, Pharaoh took off his ring from his hand and put on Joseph's hand, and arrayed him in vestures of fine linen, and put a gold chain around his neck. Giving him the status that he needs to be able to save Egypt in the plenteous years, and be able to gather up all the food that they'll need for the famine, and very much plus extra to be able to save those people around the land of Egypt. And then also when his brothers are sent by Jacob or Israel to go and buy corn, so throughout all of Joseph's life, God is guiding him and helping him to be able to do all this. Let's see here. God used the slave traders, even though, well, from the very beginning, God used his brothers to be able to use the slave traders, to be able to use Potiphar, to be able to use the prison, the keeper of the prison. Even though the prison was in Potiphar's house, Potiphar had a keeper of the prison. But the keeper of the prison, he was used, and then for Joseph to be able to tell beforehand Chief Butler, that was very key point, because otherwise Pharaoh may not have believed Joseph. All these people gave credibility to Joseph, and if he hadn't met one of those people, Pharaoh might not have been convinced to listen to Joseph if he only was in Potiphar's house, or if somehow he only was in prison and didn't meet the chief butler. God put everything out there to be able to give the right sequence of events to be able to be put second in command over all of Egypt, and to be able to save basically everyone in the land at that time. Let's see here. Okay. Egypt, Israel, save the famine. Okay. There's still more that there's also Joseph trying his brothers, and maybe that could be a lesson for another time. But I'll go ahead and finish off with that. Joseph being able to, let's see here, chapter 41, verse 54. And the 7 years of dearth began to come according as Joseph had said, and all the dearth was in all the lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. And when all the land of Egypt was famished, the people cried to Pharaoh for bread, and Pharaoh said unto all the Egyptians, Go unto Joseph, what he saith to you do. And the famine was over the face of the earth, and Joseph opened all the storehouses and sold unto the Egyptians, and the famine waxed sore in the land of Egypt. And all the countries came to Egypt to Joseph for to buy corn, because that the famine was so sore in all the lands. So there was no, this is over the face of the entire earth. There was no other country that was ready to be able to withstand 7 years of famine. God put all this in order to be able to set Joseph up in a position to be able to save not only Egypt, not only the country surrounding, but especially specifically being able to save Israel too, and all his brethren. And that's where Joseph's dream finally comes true, with his brothers coming and bowing down to him, which when his brothers came, it was only those were the only of his just like the wheat. His first dream was not with the sun and the moon. It was only his brothers. And then technically the third time that they come, because they come the second time with Benjamin, and then that's the full 11, and they bow down to him somewhere in, I think, chapter 40. Oh no, not chapter 40. Chapter 42 or 43. And then later on, his father is told that Joseph's alive and was able to go see Joseph, and he bows down, and then everyone else that's with that entourage was able to be there too. And then his second dream came true for him. So sometimes God will reveal something to us, and it will be maybe within 3 days, a day or two, or it could be years. I'm not sure exactly how old Joseph was at this point in time, because I'm not great with numbers, and I'm not sure if it says somewhere. I haven't been able to read the last part of the story too much. Actually, wasn't planning to. But anyway, all I'm saying is sometimes we have to be patient, because we don't see something. Joseph only had the in picture. He only had like a vague outline for his life. But God was able to take him through this great trial of his life that basically lasted his entire life, to be able to save everyone. And it's he never complains. There's not a point in scripture where he complains about anything. And that's one of the reasons that I like Joseph so much, is just the fortitude that he has going through all this stuff. And that's the way I want to be through my trials. So I've been through quite a lot of them in my life personally, so far, and still going through stuff. Just being able to have the peace of God, being able to have the trust that God will work it out in the end, no matter what I can or cannot see. And I know He's always there for me. He's always there for all of us. When I say He's there for me, He's that just like every single person in the face of this earth, God is there for us. And He will guide and protect us on our journey. So, did anybody have any questions, any comments, any of that kind of stuff? Did I speak well? Aside from the mic mess ups. Awesome. All right. Thank you, those who are able to be here live, and thank you, those who watch the YouTube that I'll be posting. Well, once I post it, it'll be there. So, thank you for listening, and thank you, YouTube, for letting me be able to do this.